All right, so get this. Today, we are going deep on Leonardo da Vinci. Like, really deep.
Oh, I am so ready for this.
I mean, we've got a ton of material here, and Leonardo da Vinci was way more than just the Mona Lisa guy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost like, was he a real-life Tony Stark?
Right.
Or like the original Renaissance man?
Yes. I've always been fascinated by Leonardo.
Really?
He was just like at the forefront of so many things. Engineering, anatomy, even these early ideas about flight.
Whoa, flight.
Yeah.
One of the sources even mentions that he designed these stage props to make actors look like they were actually flying.
Wow.
Talk about practicality meeting wild imagination.
I love it.
So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with his upbringing.
Okay.
Because this is interesting.
Yes, Leonardo's early life was definitely unusual. He was born out of wedlock in this, like, small village.
Oh, wow.
And get this, his last name, Da Vinci, it's literally just referencing his father's town.
Right.
And get this, he had almost no formal schooling.
No school.
I know.
But he's considered a genius. How does that even work?
I know, it's incredible. He learned basic reading, writing, a bit of math, that's it.
Wow.
But his insatiable curiosity and powers of observation, those were his real teachers.
Wow.
Imagine young Leonardo, maybe 10 years old, stumbles upon a whale fossil in a cave.
Wait, seriously? A whale fossil?
It sounds crazy, I know, but other whale fossils have been found in that region of Italy, so it's totally plausible.
That is mind-blowing. So we're already, even at age 10, we're seeing this connection with nature.
Right.
This fascination with how things work.
Absolutely. And this really sets the stage for his artistic journey. By his early teens, he ends up in Florence, which is a city just buzzing with art and innovation and the powerful Medici family.
So like the Silicon Valley of the Renaissance.
Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. And the sources really emphasize that, like, the Renaissance was all about rejecting that rigid medieval thinking.
Yeah.
And Florence was at the heart of that cultural earthquake.
It was. It was a time of rediscovering this classical knowledge, embracing human potential, the perfect breeding ground for a mind like Leonardo's.
Wow. Okay. So we've got this brilliant, curious kid in the most exciting city in Europe.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, his artistic talent was undeniable. So his father arranges for him to become an apprentice in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the top artists of the time.
Ah, so like art school, but way more hands-on.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't just about painting. Leonardo was exposed to mechanics, engineering, even like how to focus sunlight with giant mirrors to weld copper.
Right.
Centuries before welding torches.
Giant mirrors. It's like he's always thinking big.
I know.
But even as a young apprentice, his talent shines through.
Yes.
There's this story about him painting a shield.
Okay.
But not just any shield, right?
Yeah.
He creates this terrifying, incredibly realistic creature.
Wow.
And get this, he decorated it with dead insects.
Oh my gosh. That story really encapsulates his early talent and his drive for realism. I mean, who else would think to use dead insects on a shield?
Right.
It probably smelled awful,
I bet.
but it definitely made a statement.
Yeah. That's Leonardo for you. Always thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So we've got this master artist in the making.
Yeah.
But then he pulls a total surprise move. He leaves Florence and tries to sell his skills to the Duke of Milan.
What?
Not as an artist,
I know.
but as a military engineer.
Oh, that's Leonardo, always thinking strategically.
Exactly. The Duke had just seized power by force, so military strength was key.
Right.
Leonardo totally tailored his pitch perfectly.
Yep.
So, okay, what kind of wild weapons did this artistic engineer dream up?
Well, he designed things like a gigantic crossbow.
Okay.
A lot of his ideas were impractical for the time, but the detail, the forward-thinking concepts, incredible.
Yeah, one design looks like a cross between like a flying saucer and a turtle.
Right.
Was he designing an early tank or something?
Maybe. He was really grappling with concepts like projectile motion and force, ideas that wouldn't be formally studied for centuries.
That's incredible. You can really see his intellect at work.
Yes.
Even in these like seemingly outlandish designs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to really understand how this guy's mind worked,
Okay.
we have to talk about his legendary notebooks.
Oh, yes.
Over 7,000 pages.
I know.
Filled with observations, sketches, inventions.
There's so much more than just doodles. It's like peering into his thought process.
Yeah.
He questioned, he observed, he experimented.
But isn't that basically the scientific method?
It is.
Centuries before it was like formalized.
Exactly. He was doing this across so many fields: art, science, engineering, anatomy. He saw how everything was connected, and his notebooks are just this incredible testament to that.
And just a fun little fact for our listeners. Leonardo was left-handed and wrote in mirror image.
Really?
Not some like secret code,
Right.
just a way to avoid smudging his work. Paper was expensive back then.
Right.
It's those little details that make him so relatable, right?
Totally.
A genius.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But also like a practical guy who knew the value of a clean sheet of paper.
Right, exactly. And despite focusing on engineering in Milan, he still produced some breathtaking art. Like The Virgin of the Rocks, it's a masterpiece.
Virgin of the Rocks. Okay,
That's sick.
so how did that come about?
It's just a perfect example of Leonardo's ability to tell stories through composition and symbolism.
Okay.
He guides your eye through the painting, creating this narrative within the artwork itself.
And like we've seen with his other work, he doesn't skimp on the scientific accuracy.
No.
The rock formations, the plans, everything's incredibly detailed and true to life.
Right. Leonardo's art was just intertwined with his understanding of the natural world. He saw beauty in the intricacies of nature and brought that beauty to life in his paintings.
Speaking of beauty, we can't forget the iconic Vitruvian Man. That image of a man perfectly fitting within a circle in a square, representing ideal human proportions.
Yes. It's based on the writings of Vitruvius, this Roman architect, but Leonardo took it further. He saw it as this representation of humanity's connection to the universe, this perfect blend of art, science, and philosophy.
And get this, some scholars think it might be a self-portrait.
What?
The proportions match Leonardo's age and appearance at the time.
It's an incredible thought. One of the most iconic images of the human form might actually be Leonardo picturing himself. But, Leonardo's fascination with the human form went far beyond ideal proportions. Remember those stage props that made actors appear to fly?
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't just a one-off thing,
Right.
Not at all. He had this lifelong obsession with flight.
Wow.
Leonardo spent countless hours studying birds and insects, trying to unlock the secrets of how they move through the air.
And this is where it gets really interesting. One source says that Leonardo observed the specific order in which dragonfly wings move.
Really?
Centuries before high-speed cameras could capture that.
I know.
How is that even possible?
It wasn't superhuman vision. It was intense, focused observation. He said it was like reading.
Okay.
You can't just glance at a page and understand. You have to carefully consider each word in sequence.
So he's applying that same meticulous observation from his art to understanding flight.
Yeah.
He was so ahead of his time. It makes you think, in today's world, we're bombarded with images, but do we really see them?
It's a great point. Observation is a skill, one that takes practice and patience.
Right.
And it's a skill that can lead to incredible insights, as Leonardo's life shows us. Now, are you ready to tackle one of his most famous works, The Last Supper?
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. But this isn't going to be your typical, art history lecture, right?
Definitely not. We're going deep on the storytelling, the symbolism, the technical brilliance that makes this painting a masterpiece. And we'll be debunking some popular myths along the way. So, The Last Supper, this wasn't just another painting commission for Leonardo.
Right.
It was a chance to, create something truly groundbreaking. He was tasked with depicting this iconic scene for a monastery in Milan. But of course, he didn't just settle for a simple, straightforward portrayal.
I bet. Knowing Leonardo, he must have turned it into this epic, multi-layered story.
He did. He really did. He focuses on the exact moment when Jesus announces that one of his apostles will betray him.
Wow.
And the way Leonardo captures the apostles' reactions, pure brilliance.
Okay, so I'm picturing it, a table full of apostles, all reacting to this, bombshell announcement.
Yeah.
How did Leonardo bring that to life?
He uses these groupings of apostles, each group reacting differently to Jesus' words. It's like this psychological drama unfolding across the canvas.
Oh.
On the left, we've got Bartholomew, James the Lesser, and Andrew.
Okay.
Their faces are just full of shock and disbelief. They can't even process what they're hearing.
It's they're thinking, wait, who would even do that?
Exactly. And then, moving to the right, we have Peter, John, and Judas.
Okay.
Now, the emotions here are more raw, more intense. Peter is furious, John looks faint, and Judas is shrinking back into the shadows.
Oh, wow. Judas in the shadows. That's powerful.
It is.
You can practically feel his guilt.
Yeah, it's subtle but so effective. Leonardo doesn't need to hit you over the head with it. The body language says it all. Then we have Thomas, James the Greater, and Philip looking to Jesus, questioning him, trying to make sense of what he's just said.
So we've gone from shock to anger.
Yeah.
And now we're at, like, confusion and questioning.
Exactly. It's like we're seeing the stages of grief play out in real time.
That's a great analogy. What about the last group?
That's Matthew, Thaddeus, and Simon. They seem to be in this, like, deep discussion amongst themselves, trying to figure out what to do next.
So it's almost like Leonardo's giving us this, like, timeline of emotions.
Yeah.
Showing us how the apostles process this, like, devastating news.
It's incredible, right?
Wow, that's so incredible. But it's not just the storytelling, right?
No.
The sources mention that Leonardo's use of perspective in this painting was revolutionary.
Absolutely. He wanted the painting to feel like an extension of the room itself, as if the viewer was right there at the table with Jesus and the apostles. To achieve that, he actually used what's called incorrect perspective.
Incorrect perspective. What does that even mean?
It's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But essentially, he intentionally distorted certain elements to make the painting work from multiple viewpoints within the room.
Okay.
Think of it like this. If you were actually standing in that room,
Yeah.
your perspective would change as you moved around. Leonardo replicated that effect on a flat canvas.
So even though it might be, like, technically incorrect, it creates this incredible, like, immersive experience.
Exactly. He was like bending the rules to achieve his artistic vision. And speaking of bending the rules, you have to address that popular conspiracy theory. The idea that the figure next to Jesus is actually Mary Magdalene.
Oh, yeah, that whole Da Vinci Code thing.
Yeah.
But I thought that had been debunked.
It has. There's no historical evidence to support it. Back then, artists had strict guidelines for depicting biblical scenes.
Okay.
Plus, the figure next to Jesus is clearly John, who was often portrayed as more youthful and even somewhat feminine.
So Leonardo was just really good at, like, capturing those softer features in his male subjects.
He was.
Which in this case sparked a whole conspiracy theory.
Right, exactly. Sometimes a detail that's meant to enhance realism can accidentally lead to wild speculation.
Speaking of details, one thing that really struck me about Leonardo, this guy who dissected cadavers and designed war machines, is that he also had this incredible compassion, especially for animals.
Absolutely. He was particularly fond of horses and had a deep respect for all living creatures.
There's that heartwarming story about him buying caged birds just to set them free.
Right, it's so sweet.
And he seems to have been a vegetarian, although he never forced his views on others.
He didn't.
He even served meat to guests.
It's like, live and let live, but I'm going to stick to my veggies.
Talk about a true Renaissance gentleman. Okay, so now we're going from, like, heartwarming to, well, a bit more macabre.
Okay.
Leonardo wasn't just fascinated by the beauty of the human form. He was obsessed with its, like, inner workings.
Yeah.
And that led him to dissect cadavers. I have to admit, this is the part where I get a little squeamish.
It's understandable, but remember, this was becoming more common during the Renaissance.
Right.
The pursuit of scientific knowledge was really taking off, and dissection was seen as, like, a crucial tool for understanding the human body.
It still takes a certain kind of mind to do that, though.
It does.
And there's this story that's both fascinating and a little creepy. Leonardo befriends this 100-year-old man in a hospital.
Oh, wow.
And then after the man passes away, Leonardo dissects his body.
I mean, talk about dedication to your craft.
Yeah.
It definitely shows his, like, unwavering commitment to understanding the human form inside and out.
And the results were truly remarkable.
They were.
He produced these incredibly accurate anatomical drawings, some based on animal dissections, but still incredibly detailed. He even illustrated a fetus in the womb using a cow as a model.
A cow. Was that common practice back then?
I mean, I guess so. I don't know.
It was. Leonardo had to be resourceful, and using animal models allowed him to, like, make observations that would have been impossible otherwise. It's a testament to his ability to, like, see connections across species, to apply his understanding of one form to another.
So he's not just an artist, engineer, and anatomist.
Yeah.
He's also pushing the boundaries of, like, veterinary science. Okay, I think we're ready to tackle the most famous painting in the world.
Yeah.
The Mona Lisa. But before we, like, dive in,
Okay.
let's clear up some of the myths surrounding this iconic work.
Yes, let's do that. First things first. The Mona Lisa is not Leonardo in disguise, and it's not his mother.
I know, right?
I know those theories are out there, but they're just not true.
So who is she? Give us the real story.
She's Lisa del Giocondo, the wife of a wealthy Florentine merchant.
Okay.
And her portrait, despite its relatively small size, has captivated the world for centuries.
I've seen it in person, and I have to admit, I was surprised by how small it is. You expect this massive canvas,
Right.
but it's actually quite intimate. Why do you think it's become such a global icon?
Part of it is the mystery surrounding her identity, but it's also Leonardo's sheer mastery. The way he captures light, the subtle gradations of color, the composition, and, of course, that enigmatic smile. It's mesmerizing.
Speaking of the smile, what's the deal with that?
I know.
It seems to, change depending on how you look at it.
That's not an accident. Leonardo understood how our central and peripheral vision work. The smile is clearer when you look directly at it, but it fades as your gaze shifts to other parts of the painting.
That's so cool.
It's almost as if she's, interacting with the viewer.
And then there's that Mona Lisa effect where her eyes seem to follow you. Is that real, or is it just our imaginations?
It's a technique used in many portraits, but it's become synonymous with the Mona Lisa because of her fame. It all just adds to the mystique, the feeling that she's somehow alive within the canvas.
So we've covered Leonardo's childhood, his apprenticeships, his engineering feats, his anatomical studies, and his groundbreaking paintings.
What's left to explore? But we haven't even touched on his final years in France. His deep friendship with King Francis I, his later works that reflect a shift in style, and maybe even a sense of personal struggle. There's still so much to uncover about this extraordinary man. So last time, we left off with Leonardo in a new chapter of his life, living in France under the patronage of King Francis I.
Right. What a change of pace from designing war machines.
Right.
It sounds like King Francis was a huge art enthusiast.
He was.
Like a total kindred spirit.
Yeah.
What was Leonardo working on during this time?
It seems like he had more freedom to pursue his own interests. He continued to paint, of course, but his later works, like the Deluge drawings, have this different feeling, almost turbulent, like they reflect some inner turmoil.
That's interesting. The sources mention that Leonardo might have been dealing with some health issues, too.
Right.
Possibly even nerve damage in his right hand.
Yeah, some scholars believe he might have suffered a fall or some other injury that affected his ability to paint.
That's got to be tough.
Oh, especially for an artist as meticulous and precise as Leonardo.
Right.
It must have been incredibly frustrating.
I can only imagine. It makes you wonder if that physical struggle is, reflected in the intensity of those later drawings.
It's certainly possible.
Maybe art became a way to process those challenges.
It's like his art was evolving alongside his life experience. His mind was as sharp as ever. One of the sources shared this incredibly poignant detail from his notebooks. It's a geometry problem, abandoned mid-thought with the simple note, the soup is getting cold.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's both funny and heartbreaking. It's such a humanizing moment, this glimpse into the everyday life of a genius. It's like even Leonardo had to pause for a warm meal.
Exactly. It reminds us that he wasn't some untouchable figure. He was a real person with everyday concerns.
Yeah, he was a human just like us.
Right. But even in that simple note, you see his insatiable curiosity, his mind constantly at work, even as he's about to enjoy a bowl of soup.
That's so inspiring. It's like no matter what challenges life throws at you, never lose that spark of wonder, that desire to learn and explore.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Leonardo's extraordinary life,
Yes.
what do you think his greatest legacy is? Is it the Mona Lisa? The Vitruvian Man? His incredible notebooks?
It's hard to choose just one, but I think his most enduring legacy is his approach to knowledge. That relentless curiosity, the dedication to observation, the willingness to challenge conventional thinking and to see connections across different fields. He wasn't afraid to blur the lines between art, science, engineering. He saw the world as this interconnected web of wonder, and he never stopped exploring it.
He truly was the ultimate Renaissance man. And I think there's a powerful lesson for all of us in that.
Yeah.
It's not about being a genius in one specific area. It's about cultivating that Leonardo-esque mindset, that curiosity, that passion for understanding how things work, that drive to keep learning and growing throughout your life.
Exactly. And remember, Leonardo faced challenges, setbacks, even physical limitations. But his spirit of inquiry never wavered.
Yeah.
He showed us that true genius isn't about being born with some extraordinary gift. It's about nurturing your mind, honing your skills through observation and practice, and never being afraid to explore the unknown.
So as we say goodbye to Leonardo, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. What caves of knowledge are you curious about exploring? What are you passionate about? What fears might be holding you back? Remember, Leonardo's life is a reminder that the most incredible discoveries often lie just beyond our comfort zone. So keep that spark of curiosity alive. Keep observing, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll uncover your own masterpiece. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the amazing world of Leonardo da Vinci.